PLC, and we are discussing question 1. So our high priority learning standard is I can solve and represent with fluency 1 and 2 step problems involving multiplication and division, including interpreting remainders and variables in equations, and that's kind of what we're moving into next week.
Yes.
So I noticed though this week that we've started working on that too. We've started doing just a different variety of different, like I liked yesterday the task cards that had the division problems, just seeing it in multiple ways.
Right.
I think that that's really helpful.
Well, I think I'll just, a little bit next week, just show some word problems that we're just going to work through as a class, just to kind of get used to finding those keywords and
Like
Well,
modeling.
and I think the important part is about the including remainders.
Yes.
There was a few problems last week that kind of threw them for a loop
right.
when they
We
were
haven't
like,
seen enough of those.
and I even, honestly, I even was just taking the numbers, we were plugging them in and working them out, but not, and in that Google form, we weren't getting the right answers, because I was like, oh, you didn't need to include the remainder, or you needed to round up or round down.
Have they done a lot of work yet on interpreting
No.
the remainder
No,
or what to do?
I
with
just
the
noticed it in that one Google, that one,
Yeah.
breakout kind of thing.
Oh, they have, yeah, there were some questions
Yeah.
about that in there.
The
Are they doing
50s.
some of that this week?
This
The
week-
interpreting remainder stuff?
No, we're still just like plugging along with the division.
Or just practicing?
Well, actually, that
That's right.
escape room tomorrow probably has some remainders in there, so
Okay.
yeah.
We had that
That'll
one.
help, and then I'll put some more in.
We had
there
that
next
one activity where remember they had the different story problems, they sorted them into like, whether you use the remainder,
Mm.
round up,
Or
forget
drop
it,
it,
drop
yeah.
it, it had you sorting it out, which was kind of,
That was really great. We can find that.
Yeah.
Cause that actually was a really good activity.
Mhm.
I'm wondering
well,
I'm
when I
wondering
had
if we
them
could kick off the week next week.
and it had them
doing some
practicing the math
interpreting
on all
remainders.
those, but then they had to like figure out, they had to read to understand the problem, to know where to sort it.
Yeah. I can look for that.
We'll look for
Would,
it.
would it be better to do that this week or beginning of next week, you think?
Well,
This week you already had.
yeah, and I've been trying to just keep just practicing the steps with the long division this week.
Yeah.
Make sure we have that mastered. But I can do that on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
I've looked through some of y'all's stuff, and there was an activity called interpreting remainders. So that may be what the one you're talking about, and so I'll download it and look at it.
That's the title of it,
Uh-huh.
and it's probably that.
Uh-huh.
It's like the top half are the story problems, and they cut them out and they
Mhm.
glue them onto the bottom and
Mhm.
into which category or
Yeah.
something.
It's a challenge, but it's good.
Yeah.
And so then we're thinking, so maybe kick off the week with interpreting remainders practice, and then we're thinking going into just more word problems with both.
Yes, and I'll put this in the planning doc too.
Both multiplication and division.
How are we thinking we want to assess? Because I know that we've had concerns with some of the other math tests that like, they don't show their works, then they get it wrong, and we're like, how do we know where they went wrong so we can give intervention if they don't pass? So have we thought, do we still wanna do a digital and then maybe have, like, you have to show your work, you're gonna submit that too? Like, we could have
That's what I
a
think.
separate assignment
That's
where
a
they
good
submit
idea.
the work?
Because really the assessment probably only needs to be about 10 questions. It doesn't need to
And
be
I would
10.
think something just as simple as as a picture of something that they print out or use.
Maybe I could just
That's
print
gridded
something that's
out.
gridded in like 10 boxes.
Because I
solve
think-
each problem in each box.
They do the problem sometimes all mix matchy in their journal, and you can't quite, I don't know
Makes sense.
what
but-
number is what problem.
Right, yeah. That's
Give
a good
them an
idea.
organized thing that forces them to practice it.
That's a good idea.
And are we thinking we want the assessment to kind of encompass both multiplication and
It's
division?
gonna have to.
Yeah. With separate assignment to submit work from the test since it's digital. I like that.
Yeah, and then after next week, we go into geometry, so I'll probably try to give that assessment on Friday of next week.
And they go into geometry. Now, last year we did measurement, remember? Because we went into measurement because then measurement led into angles. We did all the angles and then went into geometry,
So on
which is really weird. So what does the scope and
on the
sequence say
scope and
this year?
sequence, it says geometry for 2 weeks, and then angles for 2 weeks, and then measurement for 2 weeks, and then personal finance at the end.
Okay. Okay,
So does that work?
I think so.
Okay.
This geometry is just, it's gonna be mostly like your shapes,
Y'all,
And-
that's 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
and then
And then that's the end of the school year.
that's crazy.
Wow.
We don't have much time left to get all this done.
I know, it's a lot to get in.
Okay.
Are we thinking
I mean,
we
we're on
can?
the right track, it's not like we're
Yeah,
behind.
no, I mean, we're not behind.
But it
I
is
mean,
kinda like.
That has been the
God,
nice
end-
thing with this
the end is in
season
sight.
this year is we've not been behind like we are every other year.
Right.
Every year, we usually always fall behind in some way, and
Well,
then we just can't catch up.
If it was my choice, I would probably still do 2 more weeks of long division. I feel like we kind of need it. So, I mean, maybe reassess too at the end of, like, in the middle of next week and say, are we ready for the assessment? Do we need to take some more time and maybe, rework the schedule a little bit?
And
So
also
we're thinking
might be
story
helpful-
problems all next week, interpreting remainder story problems all next week, and then we're thinking maybe middle of the following to assess.
That may be better, just to give us a little
Okay.
bit more time.
Yeah.
It also might be interesting to look at like lead
Look at-
forward and just to kinda like see how many questions.
Could we pull some questions from there
Just
to
kinda
help
like
us
to
with
see,
the
like,
assessment? Have
you
you
know.
looked to see if there is one already created, that the district created for multiplication division? I wonder if there's one already.
There are some, yes, there are some, yeah.
that are mixed together.
Yeah, I'll look at it and I can edit whatever I find, so
Okay.
if I don't love every problem, yeah.
Saying Wednesday the 17th. No, the 24th. Sarah, did you wanna pull up lead forward?
I am.
You're on top of things.
Whole number
Cause
operation.
lead forward would be a great place.
What teak is our?
Hmm?
I wish they told me more detail about the teaks, like I have to like look that up.
Oh.
Never mind, I got it, I'll have to. Like, it just gives you the number.
Well, it could, they have them written all underneath here, and I'm wondering if it's one of these, like 4.4D
Oh,
or,
oh, yeah, that's what it would be, yeah, well, those are the high priority, 4.4D.
or 4.4, I think it's
Okay,
4.4D
let me
is the
just click on
solving
4.4.
problems one,
4.4D.
maybe try that.
I mean, I had 4.4H there too. Okay, I'll just do that, I'll do 4.4D. What do you mean to look for on this? Examples of problems or how many?
Maybe just look for some examples, and then maybe we can compare with the assessments that Jackie has, just to make sure we have a variety of different ways. But I agree, I mean, I don't feel like the test needs to have, more than 10 problems. I mean, I think that's probably sufficient.
Yeah.
So then, in terms of like intervention afterwards, what are we thinking we wanna do
I was already thinking,
if kids don't pass?
especially for my virtual kids that I can't put my eyes on the actual work that they're doing. I was already thinking, like, this week, do I need to call a tutoring session after school? There's just no time during the day to pull those kids from home, but even my in-person kids could jump on if they're at home and just kind of work through some problems together. I mean, it's just the tedious of practice, and maybe do one, I don't know, maybe next week, getting ready for the assessment, making sure that they're ready, and then we can kind of look at the assessment and see, okay, do we need to have some more days, do we need to do a reteach session, something like that. I was already kind of thinking, there's a couple kids at home, like, oh, I need to reteach this too,
I know.
so.
Well, and
Well, for some of
third
those that
grade,
are
they've been doing RTI all year, and I'm certain that they're doing it during that extra 30-minute window of time where, we're plugging in like our read aloud time, you know what I mean? Like, I think that they're making it fit and work probably
Right.
in that window. So,
There's just not enough time in the day.
no.
I guess technically I could pull a few kids over in the morning before announcement starts to get here early enough. You know, there is a good 20 minutes there. I don't know.
Would there be a way, because I know, because all the kids are doing the same thing, you know, while they're doing their independent work time during the math block.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering,
Do it then.
I'm wondering if there, you know, if one of us wanted to pull a small group in the hallway of any kids who don't pass the assessment, and we can just sit and work
Yeah.
with a small group, you know, and we
Yeah.
can kind of flexibly, you know, kind of just move back and forth while they're independently working.
Yeah.
We could always do that too.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because there is a good chunk of, okay, here's your work time. But
Yeah.
whatever they're working on, I could just pull the group and.
Well, and there's always gonna be,
There's not a lot.
there's always gonna be the handful of kids that don't pass, you know, the kids that
Yeah.
have failed every single
Well, and
math
I have
assessment.
a pretty good amount of kids that I mean,
that
I'm just
struggle.
going between them during, like just now I was doing that. I was
It's
going
the
between the same,
It's
like,
the same
4
ones.
kids, whatever, because they need me to hold their hand while they're doing it, you know, literally.
Well, they need the constant extra support,
Yeah.
and then even after
They
the
just don't
test,
have the confidence.
we need
to, like,
reteaching,
Yeah.
reteaching support, it's those same friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We can definitely, and we could just pull from each class too. I mean, we could just do a group.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, we absolutely could. I like the tutoring idea as well, though, you know, just kind of an as
Because I
needed
could, yeah.
tutoring session, you know.
Well, and it would really, more than 30 minutes and they're like done. So it doesn't have to be an hour-long tutoring session. I think like Monday after school for 30 minutes, we could easily do that.
Do you want me to airplay some problems on here, or
Yeah,
is that
let's
what
look
we
at
wanna
some,
look at?
let's look at some, let me turn mine off.
So I just clicked on a lot of the teaks in this whole number of operations, because it wasn't coming up with a whole bunch.
Okay.
Okay, so multiplying 27 times 16,
Oh, it's a word problem. I was
It's a
like,
word problem.
okay.
this is the, yeah.
Okay.
It's just multiplying two numbers by two numbers.
Yeah.
How many marbles do
My
they put
kids
into
have
each
that.
container?
Like they understand the 2 by 2 multiplication, especially with the box.
Yeah.
They've got it.
Teacher
not
puts this many, they're dividing 9 into 3, this is gonna be, would have been a griddable.
So I think we probably definitely need to have, are we thinking majority single step and maybe
Yeah.
3
into
that have
160.
like a multi-step
Yeah.
component, you know, having a few on there?
Mhm.
7 into 168.
Are we talking about for the assessment or just as we're practicing, like
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a combination of both. I mean, I think,
in the assessment?
I think, and you know, next week, once we finish interpreting remainders and we go into working on the multiplication and division, I think we just have to make sure that we have
Look at
kind of
this
a
one.
combination of some single step and then multi-step.
Okay.
But the multi-step is what is just, what's
Look
really
at this
tricky.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Which expression has a quotient of, even though we use those words, but we
Oh,
don't
I know.
use
The
them enough.
vocabulary.
I know.
They're not gonna, that's from 2019.
The vocabulary.
I might even put some vocabulary questions on the assessment.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
here's a problem, label the problem. Because we could easily just drag the words to label it.
Oh, a draggable, yeah.
I mean,
What's so hard about this one is it's not even, I'm like, of about
I
7.
know. Oh gosh.
I mean,
It's not even an exact answer.
No.
It's like an estimation.
That's
Alright.
so hard.
It's so, okay.
Well, and sometimes you get such oddball questions like this. It's like, how do you prepare them for them to have a question like this? It's like,
I know.
who would have thought that we should do
These
an
were
estimation
rounding.
question with all the vocabulary words? You know,
Right,
it's
if we
like
pass the rounding
you
ones.
try to come up with all the different possible ways they might see it, but
Okay,
it's
this
almost
one's-
impossible.
This one's trickier, 1 step, 2 step. Bought 4 bags of candies, each one had 8 candles, or candles or candies?
Candies.
Candies, each bag of candy, sorry, yeah. It's just so tiny. Now it's tricky.
So it is, how many were left
and-
over, so it's asking for the remainder.
Remainder, yeah.
That's a good one.
Which, that one, I mean, to me, even as an adult, I'm like, I'm just gonna draw a picture. You
I
know, like,
know, I
for
know.
them, I can teach them.
You wanna
Okay,
draw
just
the
draw
bags
your
and
little
the
picture.
bags and
Yeah.
the candies. Candies are the number
Pass
one.
them out evenly, how many,
For some of these kids, visually is like the
Oh,
only
yeah.
way they can see these
Mhm.
problems, you know?